It's 4 o'clock on Tuesday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXI's Quarantini Happy Hour. Yeah, baby. Woo. And welcome to the big show. Let's see who's in that chat room, if anybody yet. And there we go. Hello, we've got Krista Knight, Dan Weber, Jesse J. Peck, and nobody else yet. They have it. There we go. There's Cass McKenty. Click your seatbelts. There you go. Marion Laird. Hello. Mark Reel. The gang is showing up for today's big show. Actually, today's big show is going to be a little bit of a continuation of yesterday's show because I picked stuff out of the chat room after the show that didn't get answered, and I'm going to answer it today. So there we go. Let's see, who else is checked in here? Karen Brasher, hello. Terrell Beckless, Michael Miller, Debbie Ward from Ohio. As I sat down and looked at myself in the camera, I went, am I wearing the same shirt I wore yesterday? I don't know anymore. Oh, man. And I just crammed a chocolate chip cookie down my face, so feeling a little cookied out there. Hello, Darren Moss, Ewart Williams. How are you guys? Lucian Lewis. Angela was fantastic. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, we love her. She's been a great addition to the staff. She's so representative of all of the screeners. You know, I mean, if you meet her, you meet the vibe of the screeners. If you were to meet several of them, many of them, all of them, they would all make you feel kind of warm and fuzzy like she did yesterday. Hello, Andre. Hello, Alex Dillon. Hello, Jim Stamper. Brad Gray. Songs by Voni Official. Howdy. Hello. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Click that like button. While we're hanging out waiting for people to show up, go ahead and click that like button. Yeah, how about that glitch? I think it was like 6 minutes where we were staring at that red question mark. That was no fun. She is sincere about music and its artistry. I mean, all the screeners really are. You know, it's really troubled me for 28 years that people think that the screeners are, like I said yesterday, kind of representative of that image that they have of A&R people. Like, we're here to tell you no. No, the taxi screeners are here to help you get through that gate, not be a gatekeeper. Yes, Angela had a record deal. I want to say it was Network Records out of Canada, I think. I could be wrong about that. Keith LeBrant, the creator of... Yeah, baby. That's Keith's handiwork right there. That is Keith LeBrant doing what he does best, playing his guitar. John Pearson, hello. All right. The Jams, yep. I picture the screeners as cannibals dancing around me as I stew in the big pot. Well, better to stew in the big pot than be standing there over a bed of flame and coals, you know, tied to an upright log or something. I'm not sure which is worse, actually. Personally, I don't want to talk about how I'd like to die, but probably not stewing in a big pot, that's for sure. Pedro Costa is here. Wow, Pedro. Hello. Let's see, what time is it for you? It's like 7 o'clock. Just finished dinner with the family, no doubt. Okay, so let's answer some stuff that didn't get answered yesterday, I don't believe. And the first one is from our buddy Pierre Venio, who I don't think has joined us yet today. So Pierre, if you see this later, this is all about you. Pierre's question was, Does the number of submissions to a listing have an influence on the forwards? I tend to think it does. Pierre, think again. The number of submissions absolutely has no bearing whatsoever on the number of forwards. Sorry, I'm going to adjust my chair here. There are some listings where we only get maybe a handful of submissions, and there are other listings that might get several hundred. And it's not like we sit down and go, okay, let's only forward 10%. First of all, the screeners would have no idea what 10% is, especially when there are several screeners working on the same listing. They don't know how much the other people are forwarding or how much they're not forwarding. So no, the number of submissions really never has any influence on the number of things we forward. I'm telling you, there are really only two things that will determine a forward. Does it meet the quality bar, and is it in the style that the company requested? Those are the two things the screeners look for. Okay, so there's that. Sorry, I'm catching up on the chat room. Paul Gerard has the question, what genre gets the least number of submissions? I think that there are several. Basically, kind of a rule of thumb is that if it's like we had a bunch of listings, somebody I think was working on a film or something, and they needed a bunch of Romani music, which is like Romanian gypsy music, I think. I remember looking it up at the time because that was a genre that I'd never heard of. So when it's an oddball genre that a lot of people aren't familiar with, makes perfect sense that people don't submit a lot of music because they don't know the genre. It's not like they've got it laying around, or maybe they don't want to do the work to figure out how to make Romani. There are other ones like, certain types of metal I can't even remember the names of. Like regular metal will get a decent number. Death metal may even get when I say reasonably decent number, I mean like 25 or 50 submissions, something like that. But I'm sure that I've seen genres or subgenres of metal and I went, huh? I've never heard of that in my life. And it's reflected in the number of submissions that come in. So I can't really, off the top of my head, list those specific genres, but I can tell you that if it's a genre where you say to yourself, wow, I've never made any of that, or I don't even know what that sounds like, that would be here's another example. Gospel with a choir. Everybody knows gospel, of course. How many people have a choir? Some people may try to imitate a choir by recording him or herself and some other people and just layering and layering and layering to make it sound like a big gospel choir. But that's another example of things that we don't get a lot of. Let's see. Next question from Paul Gerard again. This is the flip side of the last question. What genre gets the most submissions? Let me think. Singer-songwriter is right up there. A lot of people are singer-songwriters. A lot of people, and we go through phases. Sometimes we'll go through a 2 or 3 month period where we don't get a lot of singer-songwriter submissions. Then all of a sudden, like recently, I think we've had several, if not many. Country gets a ton of submissions. And we go through dry spells and times where we get tons of country requests. We're in one of those right now. I've seen a lot of country coming through lately. Instrumentally, I'm always a little surprised that we get a pretty fair number of orchestral submissions when we run like orchestral instrumentals needed for trailers. We'll get a lot of those. Frankly, I'm always surprised because I know that they're much harder to create than, let's say, like a light, breezy acoustic guitar, instrumental or a cue. Would be relatively easy and maybe only take 2 or 3 instruments and a couple hours to make, whereas a full-blown orchestral thing could be, a day's worth of work, maybe more. Especially when you go back and you're doing all the articulations and everything, that takes a lot of work. What else gets a lot of submissions? Dramedy tends to get a lot of submissions because we've spent a lot of time talking about it on Taxi TV, I think, and some of our more successful members do a lot of dramedy, so they have kind of coached other people getting into the dramedy thing vis-a-vis our forum. I think what else? Singer-songwriter, country, orchestral, dramedy, I don't know. Can't think. I don't know. Buffalo Bob asks a really good question. If you write it and sing it, are you a singer-songwriter no matter what the genre? You know, I'm going to vote yes on that. Only because, I mean, singer-songwriter to me used to be like Carole King, James Taylor, people like that, the strummy acoustic guitar singer-songwriter types. And then, you know, some people obviously like Carole King playing piano. Nowadays, there are people that write it and sing it, and therefore they are singer-songwriters. But the styles are much different. They're not like that James Taylor style. And frankly, I might be a little hard-pressed to tell you what the differences are. The way that the songs are constructed, they're not as like 4/4 strummy on the ones, kind of, you know, they're just not a lot of that. Nowadays, singer-songwriter can be like verging on, like, what's the difference between indie singer-songwriter and regular singer-songwriter? I would say indie singer-songwriter has more of an indie vibe in the vocal delivery. Probably sounds more modern. You could make a case that some indie singer-songwriter stuff sounds very kind of lo-fi. Like, you know, fat rusty strings on the acoustic guitar, a single vocal. Maybe it's just a guitar and a vocal. And it sounds like it was recorded right into your cell phone or something. And if the song is right and lends itself well to that style of production, that could be it. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, Dave Merkel says or asks, are the screeners required to take a break after X number hours of listening to music, as in ear fatigue? The answer is we've always had a rule that screeners work 4 hours, because after 4 hours, you start getting a little cranky. You know, it's not fun anymore. We want to keep them at their best. So that's it. They work 4 hours. There are rare exceptions, and I mean really rare exceptions. But like if we're on a hard deadline for something, somebody's got to work 5.5 hours to help us meet the deadline, we'll ask them, how do you feel? Yeah, I can do it. Okay. So we let them. But I would say 95 to 98, maybe even 99% of the time, they work 4 hours. Sometimes they work 2 hours. Sometimes they work 3 hours. But 4 hours is the cap. It's always been that way. Paul Gerard asked Greg Carosa yesterday in the chat, do you write to each specific request or place material from your existing catalog? And I think that Paul Gerard was asking Greg Carosa that because Greg was talking about how the first year or two or some period of time that he wasn't getting a lot of traction with Taxi. And then all of a sudden things started to click for him and he started writing specifically to the request rather than pulling stuff out of his catalog. And that's when things started really changing for him. And now all he does is write to the listings. And he's had some, I can't even remember. I'd be lying if I said I remember the numbers. But it was an impressive number of signings, and placements are starting to happen regularly for him. So, you know, when you try and pull something out of your catalog, there's a really high probability that you're going to be trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. I've seen people go through like this rationalization process where they go, well, I know it's not exactly what they're looking for, but it does have this aspect and it has that aspect, and it's just so good. They'll probably hear it and just fall in love with it and forward it. Or if Taxi forwards it, the person on the end user side may hear it and go, well, it's not really what we asked for, but yeah, it does mention the word love. And yes, it's a female vocal. so I'm going to submit it. And there are enough components of that song or instrumental, because they recorded it without working to a brief or a listing, that probably don't line up, and it'll probably get returned. And a lot of new people, a lot of new members to TAXI do that. A lot of people think that you need to have like a vast catalog before you join TAXI, and you've got to be super pro, and they don't really realize, and that's just one of those urban myths that's out there and has been propagated for years. They don't really understand that you're probably better off being a ways down the road, maybe not fully down the road, and then do what almost all of our successful members do, which is they come to this realization that they should start writing in response to the listings. They realize that they're not quite there yet, that they don't know enough about the way cues are built, or they don't understand how universal lyrics work in the context of film and TV. And they rely on input from the other members in the chat room, in this chat room, on TAXI TV, on the forum, meeting other composers at the road rally, developing friendships with them, and they find out, oh, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. And we watch them improve, and lo and behold, just like Greg Carrozza, after a point in time, they start getting more forwards, and eventually they get more deals. Scanning to see... Carrie says, not an issue. I have no catalog to draw from. That's pretty funny. All right, let's do another one here. Mike S. asked the question, listings for cover songs or instrumentals, the license is obtained by the client, ? How it works is, yes, they would have to license the composition from the original creator or the publisher, whomever had that, and they license the master recording from you guys. So that's how that works. Oh, man, I haven't seen John Hope in here. I told him I was going to answer this one today. So John Hope asks, what about listings that ask if you're not experienced with library contracts to please not submit music? Sets limits on what you can submit to. Honestly, I have mixed feelings about that. I certainly understand where the libraries are coming from, and where they're coming from is that they have kind of lost their patience. Wow, the sun's going down and my face is getting orange again. Gonna have to hire a professional lighting person. They get frustrated with people who don't know the drill about what a typical library contract looks like, what the clauses mean. Their music could be great, and then the library offers them a deal, and the library finds out that they've already got a publishing deal that they're not aware of, or an admin deal through CD Baby or TuneCore or whomever. And the libraries get upset because they spend a fair amount of time kind of doing a little romancing of the composer or songwriter. And then they do some due diligence. Sometimes they find out that they're co-writers, and the TAXI member or whoever creates the music will say, oh, I did have co-writers, but man, I did that with my band like 20 years ago. I have no idea where those people are anymore, but I'm sure they'd be fine with it. Well, you can't be sure they'd be fine with it. And it's not an unheard of scenario where, somebody is sitting in a movie theater or turns on a TV show and they hear a song, go, what the hell? I co-wrote that song. I can't believe it. I didn't even know that was going to be in the movie. And then they find out that, the person who was maybe the lead singer and lead songwriter, but also a co-writer with the person who was not, consulted or included. And it gets ugly. So these are the reasons that the library owners want to work with experienced people. And I would say, on the whole, TAXI's members are more in tune with this stuff, more aware of this stuff. There are cases where we have experienced members that don't know a particular thing, and that gets them into trouble. So it's not just newbies, but they want people who, when they see a contract, aren't going to go, oh my gosh, this is the big one. Oh my gosh, you want 100% of the publishing, meaning the publisher's share. It's not 100% of the publishing, it's 100% of the publisher's share. No way. I took a music law course or a publishing course when I was in college 20 years ago, and they said, never give up your publishing. Truth of the matter is, the music library industry has not been very well known amongst mainstream bigger publishers that work on music that makes it to records, and therefore even those people even a bunch of music attorneys I know really don't know anything about the music library business, and they would, their jaw would drop. It's like, what? But this is the standard for the industry, and it's the way it is. And it's not like the libraries are taking advantage of anybody. They actually do quite a bit of work to get their half of the income. A lot of people don't understand how much work libraries do, but like some of the things they do might be mastering every track if they do that, doing the due diligence, tagging the music, getting it in the right genre in their database, getting the paperwork out to the composer, getting back the signed contract, registering with a PRO. All that stuff goes on in the background, and I think people sometimes forget that they really do a decent amount of work to get what they get. Let's see. Let's do another one. I got a couple more left, I think. Whether I said yesterday, custom critiques are worth 10 times the price. Shh, don't tell anybody. Frankly, oh, John Hope is there. Good. Hey, John. I don't really understand that. Let them decide what is and go with the flow. I need clarification on that. But going back to the custom critiques, frankly, I haven't looked at the numbers, the profit loss numbers on those in probably 2 years. We rarely make any money on those. Frankly, there were years where we lost a lot of money. At some point, we raised the price from, I think, $10 to $20 for a custom, and we were losing thousands, many thousands. I mean, maybe not $10,000 a year, but like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year on what we were paying the screeners to do the customs, because we really don't give them a time frame. We just say, do a great job, give them a really in-depth review. So we had screeners that were really passionate about it, and they were givers, and they would spend a couple hours working on a single custom critique. And just so you know, I mean, I've never been shy about sharing this. The screeners get paid $30 an hour. So we spent $60 to generate the critique, and we got 10 in the door. I think now we charge 20. So still, if somebody takes just a single hour at 30, and the submission fee on a custom is 20, we lose $10 on the deal. But you know what? I kind of look the other way and go, oh, well, it's for the greater good. It's for the education of the members. It helps them get more deals, helps them make better music, helps them hit the target more often, helps them understand what their strengths and weaknesses are. That's all good. If more of our members got that kind of education, we would have more music, more good music coming in, more people landing deals, more happy members, which is always good for a business. Marion says, you're losing money but gaining such goodwill. Yeah, if they know, I agree with you, but sometimes I do want to say, hey, guess what? We just spent $60 giving you a $20 critique. Yeah, we do pay them well, I mean, how many places can you work as an independent contractor, like when you are able, when you are willing and want to, and make $30 an hour? It's pretty good money. It's not like, wow, anybody's getting rich from that, but it's nice. And, it probably beats doing other forms of temporary labor in between shows that they're working on or whatever. Sometimes people lose a job. It is kind of funny. There have been times people that have been less than kind about TAXI. I remember one year I was at the ASCAP Expo, and somebody asked a panel of publishers, have you ever used TAXI? And one publisher was like, no, and I never would. They charge musicians money up front. Of course, he didn't understand anything about how we worked. He didn't know that we had a money-back guarantee, none of that stuff. And probably about 3-4 years later, I got a phone call from that publisher who I noticed in the trades had been let go from his job, had been out of work for quite some time. And it takes them a while because people, don't want to go to work at TAXI screening music because they're holding out hope. And I certainly understand that another one of those good paying publishing gigs is going to come along and they're going to be back in the chips and it's all good. And then nothing happens. And then nothing happens for a little while longer and a little while longer. Pretty soon their spouse is like, wow, getting kind of tired of you being around the house. You're not helping with the kids. You're driving me crazy. You're chugging beer at 11 o'clock in the morning because you're depressed because you didn't get another one of those awesome jobs in the industry. And this particular person picked up the phone and called me. Okay, I admit it. I enjoyed the fact that I was able to say, now let me get this straight, John. I was in a panel at the ASCAP Expo when you went off on why people should not use TAXI. So you probably cost us a bunch of members that day, a bunch of income. You besmirched our reputation because you just didn't know enough about it. And now you want me to put food on your table. Yeah. I said, well, do you have any kids? Yeah, I do. How long have you been out of work? 16 months. All right, we're going to give you a shot because I don't want to see anybody's kids not get a Christmas present this year. But dude, the next time you're on a panel and somebody asks you about TAXI, just tell the truth. He was very embarrassed. As it turned out, he didn't work out as a screener. He just, you could feel his displeasure with his position in life. He was cranky and angry and bitter that he hadn't gotten another job. And it came through on his test critique, so we ended up not hiring him for the gig. Okay, let's see. Do I have anything else? Here's one from Karen Brasher, who's in the chat room. Hello, Scott Hansen. Karen asks, not being able to take part in a listing is a shame if no experience before. Oh, we're talking about that same thing. I have experience from years ago when a video of mine was aired on Channel 4 TV. Does that count? It really doesn't. I think you were in the room and I just explained why they want people who are experienced. It's more about knowing the rules of the game. It's not like a credibility thing. Oh, look at that. Karen had a placement before. She's in the club. I've never gotten any sense that that is how they're thinking. It's more about protecting themselves in the context of the business relationship. It's about not doing a lot of hand-holding. It's about understanding that you need to deliver things on time when there's a deadline. It's not making the mistake of using union players at demo rate in Nashville and then getting your thing into a movie and the union rep comes out of the woodwork and says, you pay demo rate on that. Look at that. It just got used like a master. So now you've got to pay, the union people another $850 or whatever that number would be. So it's that stuff. Pedro Costa says, is there such a thing as too nice? Well, Pedro, you know how I love to make affectionate fun of Canadians. My biggest problem with Canadians is you guys are super nice. I used to go to Vancouver pretty frequently, maybe like 3 times a year. I went there once for a conference and liked it so much that I went back. Also, there was a stretch of time where I was pretty good friends with Randy Bachman, as you guys say. Randy Bachman, as we Americans say. And he lived on Salt Spring Island, which is a short pontoon plane ride from Vancouver. And so I would go to Vancouver, I guess, 2 times a year, 3 times a year, maybe. And the Vancouverites are like so incredibly nice that it's kind of sickening. I always made jokes saying, man, if you walk up to a stranger in Vancouver and kick them with all your might right in their shin and practically break their leg, they'll say, oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry I got my leg in the way of your foot. So there I am, picking on you Canadians now. Canadians are super nice. Isn't that funny that just nothing more than a border on, like on top of the U.S. and south of Canada? That's like, there's so many similarities between Canadians and Americans. And yet, Canadians, on the whole, I would say, are like super friendlier than Americans. Not that Americans are like a bunch of, buttheads, but just Canadians are like, whoa, did you guys all take Xanax when you woke up this morning? Anyway, there, I'm done picking on Canadians, Pedro. I say that all of that with affection. All right, so I think that was it. Let's see, I had one other sheet. Let's see if there's anything that didn't get answered. I think Angela answered this one yesterday, but I'm going to talk about it again. It's from Karen Mitchell. Karen wanted to know if we submit to a listing. Oh, I did talk about this, especially an exclusive one, and get a forward. What's a reasonable time frame to wait before continuing to pitch the song? My answer is don't wait a minute. I mean, if you find out you get a forward, frankly, I would start pitching that to other stuff, because if it was good enough to get forwarded to one thing, as long as the pitch is on target for others, you will probably get forwards for those as well. Why wouldn't you plant as many seeds as you could to see which one or ones, plural, sprout, or take root? Let's see. Sorry for not looking at you guys. I need to scan here. We talked about, Smudgy asked why we don't do anonymous submissions. Yeah, we did, right? And the screeners, they don't care. The screeners don't look and go, oh, there's Tommy Jones again. I remember not liking the last song Tommy sent in. So, oh, that's right. Angela brought up a really good point, which I didn't think of, but frankly, I think it's very true, which is that the screeners really do tend to get kind of a cheap thrill out of watching the members grow and get better. So if they see somebody who maybe they didn't forward 3 months ago, and it might even be the same song again that's now been tweaked based on what that screener or several screeners have given them input on, they get a real sense of satisfaction. Like, wow, I get paid to help people, and this person understood what I meant, and they actually did it, and now it's much better. So I think it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I've never heard anecdotally of any evidence whatsoever of screeners going, oh, it's him again. I want to ask some of you guys, Pedro was a TAXI member for many years, if Keith LeBrant is still in the room, or any other members that would like to address this. Certainly John Pearson could, several of you probably could. Rex Caldwell asked, do you have any thoughts on how would somebody who's fortunate enough to receive many forwards but just one or two deals figure out what they need to do to land more deals? Any of you guys want to address that? So somebody who's had a bunch of forwards but only got a couple of deals, what's your take on that? Is there something that Rex Caldwell should be doing differently? Is it as simple as just keep writing, submitting, forgetting, and repeating? What's the answer? I want to know. Hello, Nancy Kalel. It's all right. We're not, marking down who's tardy. Pedro says, I love my American friends. All super nice. I really don't see the difference. That's because you're Canadian. You're too kind to see the difference. I'm telling you, Canada, if there's a Grammy Award or an Oscar or something for being super nice, I think Canada and the Bahamas might go neck and neck on a tie for that. Can I ask the question again? Yeah, somebody who's fortunate enough to get a lot of forwards, but only one or two deals, is there something that he needs to figure out that would help him land more deals from the forwards? I found this a little tough to answer yesterday because we don't know how many forwards is many. He might consider 9 or 12 many. Keith LeBrant might consider 200 many. So I think everybody's version of many is different. Therefore, it makes it hard for me to answer. So Pearson says, keep submitting and maybe honing in on the target listing a bit more precisely. But really, you just need lots of forwards. Nobody wants to hear that it's a numbers game, but it is. Because with every new piece of music you make, you've gotten better and you've planted another seed. The more seeds you plant, the more plants you're going to get. Man, that was really profound, wasn't it? Wow, Kristen, your husband had a heart attack aboard a ship and they had to pull over. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Many, many years ago, I had moved out here but kept my apartment in New York. I'd been divorced for a few years and I had 2 daughters who at the time were like, let's say, 6 and 9 years old. So I went back to New York every other weekend to be with the kids. Never missed a birthday party or a dance recital or any of that stuff. To them, it was almost like I still lived there because every time I went back there, I would pick them up at their mom's house, bring them to my apartment in New York City. So one time we missed a flight at Newark Airport. We got on another flight and it was pretty late at night and it was connecting in Denver, I think, and somewhere like over Nebraska. The gentleman sitting immediately behind us, I think we were in a wide body, like maybe a DC-10 or 747 with 4 seats on the outside or 2 and 2, and then like 6 or whatever number of seats in the middle. And we were in that middle section. It was dark. Most people were sleeping or some were watching the movie, what have you. And all of a sudden we hear some kicking of the seat directly behind me. And this gentleman go, he had a heart attack and he passed away in his seat on the plane. So apparently there's a rule that if somebody unfortunately passes away on a flight, they have to put the plane down at the next closest airport. Trying to find an airport that could handle a wide body was not that easy. And when they did put the plane down, they put it down in a hurry on a relatively short runway. And they had to hit the brakes so hard that they burnt out the brakes and shredded a tire on the plane. So we ended up spending a lot of time in that airport. Actually, maybe it was a direct flight and we ended up going to Denver Airport was where they put it down. No, that would have had big... Well, whatever the case was, I remember that everybody was like leaning forward in their seats when the pilot put on the brakes. And there was a very foul smell from the brake pads being burnt out, and the whole thing was just a mess. And of course, my kids were absolutely freaked out. Yeah, it was not our best flight. I was actually on a flight one time where the right engine cut out. It was a 737, and I remember the plane was like 2 hours late taking off, and they kept saying it was a mechanical issue, fine, it's all good, get on the plane, here we go. And somewhere over Texas, the right engine died. Apparently, the thing that they thought they'd fixed was a fuel line issue. And the engine on the right just wasn't getting any fuel. And as soon as that engine went out, everybody went and turned to the right. It was like 250 people, all heads went to the right simultaneously. It was like they'd rehearsed it. It was so well choreographed. And the pilot very nonchalantly came on and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we just lost the right engine. We're in absolutely no danger whatsoever. This plane was designed to fly perfectly well on just one engine. And as a matter of fact, if we lose an engine on takeoff, this plane can even gain altitude on just one engine. So we're fine. We're going to put it down at the next closest airport, but we're fine." And we were. So yay, thank God for that. Ooh, not able to de-ice the entire runway. Ouch. Gives a whole new meaning to skid marks. You never want to watch CPR being done? I've actually given CPR to an alcoholic, heroin addicted chain smoker. It was back before 911 even existed. It was a famous artist. I can't reveal who it was. It was in the studio, and this artist and I didn't get along all that well, quite frankly. He was a bit of a jerk, and he was really drunk a lot, and we'd had words and some tense moments, and his manager would come in the control room and give me thumbs at my shoulders to like keep me calm, because I just wanted to like bop this guy. And at some point, the gentleman took a break, walked out of the control room, and then never showed up again. And we're all looking all over for him. And I found the bathroom door. We had a bathroom kind of near the reception desk in the lobby of the studio. And I knocked on the door. Nobody answered. I jiggled the handle. It was locked. I knocked again. Nobody answered. So it was a fairly flimsy door. I gave it the old shoulder. The door flopped open, and there's this famous rock star. And no, it wasn't Eric Clapton. No, it wasn't anybody from Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Just going to say that. He was on the toilet with his pants down to his ankles, a syringe hanging out of his arm, totally passed out, blue, with a .38 revolver sitting on the tank of the toilet. And I started screaming, call an ambulance, call an ambulance. And I did the dumbest thing maybe I've ever done. In the heat of panic, I grabbed him by like the back of his calves to pull him off the toilet so I could give him CPR. I'd been trained in CPR because we took a parenting class that CPR was a requirement. So I knew how to give CPR. And I was a Boy Scout. And when I pulled the guy off the toilet, his head, and we had Saltillo tiles, I think they're called, the Mexican floor tiles. His head hit the floor tiles when I pulled him off the toilet and went like a coconut. Oh, God. And it was just horrible. The dude had bad breath. Really, really, really bad breath. Really bad breath. And the funny thing was, this person, about 10 years ago, I went to the grocery store here in our neighborhood. Ralph's is a big chain here in California. It's like Kroger's or any of the big chains. As a matter of fact, I think Ralph's is the California version of Kroger's. And I ran into him at the grocery store, but he had no idea who I was. And frankly, I mean, we literally just walked right by each other, but he didn't know who I was. I was much more handsome when I was like 24. Yeah, druggy breath. Ugh. Oh, Marion misses Ralph's. Talk fishing now. The story needs to be nominated for a Golden Gopher Award. Oh, I do have Gopher news to report. I thought they were gone again. I thought maybe there's a falcon that lives in one of the trees, and he hangs out and waits for gophers. And I thought the gophers had disappeared, but sure enough, I think it was yesterday after the show I went out there, or maybe it was right before the show, and sure enough, a fresh gopher hole. And I went out there this afternoon, about 10 minutes before airtime, another gopher hole. So, yep, when the show is off air today, I am going out there with my gopher hawk to stick that thing in the ground and catch that little sucker. What species of falcon? I don't know. The gopher-eating species. No idea. Maybe it's a peregrine. I don't know. It's not very big, I can tell you that. It's about yay big, like, I don't know, 13, 14 inches tall, maybe. Certainly not as big as like a red-tailed hawk or anything like that. Hey, Jam Wileage, how are you? How's the snook fishing down there? No, too small to be a hawk. Definitely not a hawk. And it's got a different shaped face, but it's definitely a member of the raptor family. I mean, you can tell by the claws and the beak and everything. Ooh, the kind with the snowman. Anyone get that reference? I do. The Falcon and the Snowman, starring, what's his name, that little communist guy. Can't think. Nancy, if your neighbor has 4 new gopher holes, I would say the answer is yes. John Pearson may have a better answer for you. But yeah, pretty much when we got inundated with gophers, my neighbors on both sides of us did as well. Marion says falcons have cute sideburns on their faces. Well, Marion, I hate to break your heart, but I actually didn't get close enough to look at his sideburns, although I will next time. And if he has them, I'm going to call him Elvis from now on. Kestrels are in the falcon family, but they typically eat small birds. Wow, 190 flights a year for 3 years? Wow. I thought I was a big deal when I got my million miler card on United, but I think you might have me beat there. Ken Mesford's been attacked by a peregrine falcon. Why? Do you look like a gopher? Why would a falcon attack you? Happy Ron, how are you, buddy? Thank you for the road rally and the kindness comments on my song, The Wider View. You're welcome. Yeah, don't they say you have to fly like 20,000 times before statistically your number could be up? And it might even be like 20,000 times in a year or something like that. Yeah, JP just checked in on the Gopher sitch for Nancy and says, nope, they don't. They don't respect property lines. Guess what I ate right before I went on air today? M&Ms. I think it's a lie that they melt in your mouth. I frequently get little pieces of the candy coating or the nuts floating around my throat. Mark Wildy says, hey, new to the channel. Well, welcome aboard. Hope you can handle all of us. We become a little group of misfits here. I think location matters when pursuing a music career these days, especially during COVID restrictions. If so, where would you ideally want to be? Well, it all depends on the kind of music you're making. If you're doing country, there is no question. And look, I'm the owner of Taxi. I would love everybody to think I've got an equal shot of getting my songs cut in the country market by being a Taxi member as I would if I lived in Nashville and paid my dues for 5 years and hung out at the right bars and the right restaurants and got in the right writer circles and went to all the NSAI meetings, all that stuff. I'd be lying. Honestly, the best thing you can do if you're doing country is go to Nashville. But I always say, go to Nashville after you've been a Taxi member for a while. And if you're getting forwards to country listings that are for publishers on the row in Nashville, if Taxi is forwarding you, then you're doing something right. If you consistently get 10 forwards in a year on stuff at that level, you might want to think about moving to Nashville. My son hasn't caught any snook big enough to keep. Well, even the little ones are fun to catch, but they are really delicious. I would love, next time I'm in Florida and go fishing, if I catch a keeper snook, I am definitely going to try it raw right there on the boat. I've never had snook sashimi, which is really hard to say. I'm scanning. Keeper Snook, the title of my next album. Take a photo of fish and show it on Taxi TV. Haven't I shown you guys fish photos in the past? In the very early days of the Quarantinis? I kind of remember one day I found a stack of old photos, I think, and brought them down and showed you guys some studio shots and some fish shots. Wasn't Snook a TV star? No, that was Snooky. She was from Jersey. Wow. Yep. My guess, I had a similar experience with an M&M where I had to Heimlich myself in a hotel room. I'm not going to tell the story because I've told it at least 2 or 3 times already. But same thing, when I finally successfully did the Heimlich, man, that thing shot out like like it was a bullet. I couldn't believe how fast it came out of there. So thank God you saved your son. Didn't we do 6 months ago the Snook of Love? You've got the Snook. I think we did. I think you're right, Darren. No, Pedro, you didn't send me a picture of the trophy wife your bass caught. And I've always liked your wife. Now I like her even more. I used to have a Billy Bass. That was the rubber bass on the mount that you pressed the button and it sang a song and wagged its tail, right? Love that thing. Mochi is the leading cause of death in Japan around the holidays. Seriously? Mochi, like the rice paper covered ice cream balls? The leading cause of death? That's the last time I'm ever going to put a mochi ball in my mouth. Your wife loves fishing? Oh my goodness. How long does it take the average taxi member to get it? How to write for listings? I.e., how long does it typically take them going from rejections to forwards on average? Honestly, Brad, I couldn't tell you, and it's going to be widely variable depending on how much they do and how hard they're working at it. It's not as simple as saying, well, this guy's been a member for about 18 months. I can tell you that it breaks my heart how many members don't renew for a second year. They go home with their tail between their legs, frustrated and emotionally beaten up because, oh man, I can't believe it. I spent 300 years to join, or $300 to join Taxi for a whole year, and I didn't get a deal. And then we come to find out that they only submitted like 6 times and they got one forward, and they're frustrated. We do see anecdotal evidence of a lot more people getting deals kind of midway through their second year. I think that those people have shown that they are committed. They're coming back for another year. They've probably hung out on the forum. Maybe they've hung out and watched the Quarantinis and spent time in the chat with you guys. Maybe they've picked up collaborators that they've learned from. There are so many varied reasons why people become successful through Taxi. But all I can say for sure is definitely more people become successful in their second year. And usually around year 3 or 4 is when they start to make, thousands of dollars. It could be 3,000, could be 5,000, could be 10,000. And if I had to guess, again, these are just rough numbers, anecdotal stuff, but I would say it's not unusual that the people who start making like 40, 50, 60 grand a year have probably been members for about 4, 5, or 6 years. Now, funny how those things are multiples. I've been a member for 4 years. I made 40 grand. I would say that they haven't given up, and they've learned the drill by taking in all this education that we give them, and they just trust that in time it will come, and it does. But you can't just be a member for 4 years and not keep submitting and not keep improving. What kind of recording skills are needed to write for a listing? Depends on the genre. If you're doing, lo-fi singer-songwriter, not a whole lot of recording skills are required to do that. Certainly not as much as you would need for doing big orchestral stuff. Yeah, how do you die on a mochi ball? I mean, the things are almost the size of a golf ball. How many people would like, you know, I eat mochi fairly often. We buy it at Trader Joe's. We go out for sushi. We get a little mochi dessert. But usually you cut them in half or even in quarters. It's not the size, it's the what? The technique. Sorry. Trying not to sound blue. Keith LeBrant. And he's had his music, and for anybody watching this doesn't know Keith, his music has now been in somewhere around 950 TV shows. He says, yeah, stay in the game. It's a long game. Every one of our successful members would tell you that. It is definitely a long game. Yeah, you should just bite into mochi. Mochi is an ice cream ball about the size of a golf ball, and it's covered in like a 16th of an inch thick skin that's like almost a little leathery, but it's made out of rice flour, I think, and they roll it out really skinny, and then the mochi, the ice cream balls, are wrapped in it. Jan Wilich, well, sorry, I'm laughing at this, but once choked on a lifesaver candy, is that a conflict? Maybe. Maybe that's why they call them lifesavers. So many people needed somebody to save their lives after they ate them. That's why they put the hole in the middle. I remember learning that as a kid. I can't remember where I learned that, but somebody somewhere told me that they put holes in the middle of lifesavers because they're shaped like a lifesaver, and the hole means if it gets caught in your throat, it'll probably still let some air go through. I told you guys about the time I got the olive stuck in my sinus up here, right? That's another wish I had died from food story. Ooh, Reese's peanut butter cups. Love those. They should put holes in mochi. There you go. Always chew. Good advice, Darren. I never told you guys about the olive. Okay, we've got 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes left. I've got time for a story. It's story time, kids. Gather around while Dad tells you a story about the time he almost died from inhaling an olive. Okay, so I think it was not Thanksgiving. I think it was Halloween. And at the time, my best friend was a gentleman named Doug Wyrick, and he would dress up like Father Guido Sarducci on Halloween every year and walk around, bless you, bless you. And Doug was a drinker. He liked all forms of alcohol, but on celebratory events or occasions like Halloween, he would prefer martinis. So I think we were at my studio in Fort Lauderdale, and we're getting ready to go to somebody's Halloween party, and Doug made martinis with olives. Good choice. And somebody said something funny as I was sipping this martini. And remember, I rarely drink. I might drink like 3 or 4 times in a year. Usually that's like a glass of wine at Thanksgiving dinner or something. And so I was kind of reluctantly drinking this martini just to shut Doug up, because he was going, come on, man, drink the martini. So I'm drinking the martini. Somebody said something funny, and I went like that. I laughed and snorted. And almost instantly, I felt pain up here like I've never felt in my life. Seriously, if somebody took like a 6-inch knife and heated it up in a fire till the blade was red hot and then jammed it into your forehead, that's what it felt like. And I remember thinking, how is it even possible? That's got to be the olive. Well, you got that little hole in the roof of your mouth, and apparently when you laugh and do that little snorky thing, that's enough to get an olive up into your sinus. And I remember seriously, I was screaming and begging them, take me to the hospital. I was literally going to go in there and beg them to drill a hole in my forehead and take this olive out. And I just kept blowing my nose and blowing my nose and blowing my nose. The vinegar and the salt in my sinus was just killing me. My eyeballs felt like they were going to pop out of my head. The pain was excruciating. Some of the worst pain, maybe the worst pain I've ever had in my life. And finally, after blowing and blowing and blowing, first a little piece of green olive came out, and then finally the pimento came out. And then the rest of the olive came out. And I remember I got on a chair and kind of hung myself upside down and had whoever was with me at the time, maybe it was my first wife, maybe it was Doug's wife, maybe it was Doug's somebody. I just had them pour water on my face and run it into my nose and went like that and got it into my sinuses and then blew my nose about 1 million more times just to clean it all out. Anyway, so there you go. There's my little olive in the sinus story. Hope you kids enjoyed the story today. Yeah, no wonder I don't drink seriously, and I love olives. I mean, it's not unusual for me to open a jar of like Kalamata olives or some kind of exotic olive and eat like 10 of them. I love olives. Poor man's neti pot. There you go. In my case, it's more like a snotty pot. Anyway, guys, it's 5:01. It's time to go. I will be careful not to choke myself on any M&Ms after today's show. It's fun hanging out with you, and let's do it again Thursday, 4 o'clock, right back here. What do you say? Here comes a little Keith LeBrant. Bye, you guys. Thanks for showing up and hanging out.